Senator Wyden.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This has been an excellent panel, and let me get your sense with respect to where I think we are at this point in the debate. We're, of course, debating the intersection between energy policy and tax policy. And the Senate Finance Committee earlier this year, I think, made the correct call in terms of trying to start this debate. What we recognized is that you ought to extend the current tax provisions, at least for a relatively short period of time, a year or thereabouts, and that was what was done with respect to the production tax credit for renewable energy and for the 25C residential energy efficiency credits, so that we wouldn't be pulling the rug out from under these important programs, and you all have touched on that. The question is then, what happens from this point on? And there are a number of us who sit on both this committee and the Energy Committee, and I think it's going to be important to try to lay out some principles early on with respect to what we ought to be working for. And I want to ask your reaction specifically to making a bedrock principle of fundamental tax reform a more level playing field between the various energy sources. Because what we have seen over the years, and I've sat next to Senator Bingaman for more than a decade on both of these committees, is a lot of the programs that you all correctly identify as so important, the renewable programs, the energy efficiency programs, they're essentially on a temporary status. And a lot of the other programs, the more traditional programs, have been embedded in the tax code for years, in effect have acquired a more permanent kind of status. I don't see how we improve, number one, the investment climate for the kinds of important programs you're talking about if we don't have a more permanent and level kind of playing field, nor do I think you really get out the all of the above kind of approach that every senator says they're for. I often kid and say it's not an energy speech unless you say you're for all of the above 3 or 4 times. And I don't see how you really can be for that without a more level playing field. So I'd just be interested in your reaction to that being a bedrock principle of tax reform as we start these more extensive discussions next year, and we just go down the road.
Senator Wyden, that's a great question, and one I think that deserves a considerable amount of attention. This is a complex area, clearly. The one thing I would say is that we should be making decisions based on the best information and the best analytics that are available, and some of those are woefully inadequate. And so I would say that there's a lot of opportunity to do some analysis that allows there to be more thoughtful a policy built on very quantifiable trends that we see in the marketplace. It's difficult to know what's going to happen 5 years from now. It's difficult to know, even more so, what's going to happen 10 years from now. And we will miss some important market dynamics if we don't have good analytics. So the first thing I would offer is that the tools and the simulation and modeling type of programs are getting more sophisticated. They're not the end-all. They depend on the assumptions that you make in order to understand what the outcomes are. But those tools should be transparent. And one of the things that we should focus on is the true cost of energy and the true cost of all of the things that relate to the societal benefits that we expect out of our energy system. And we're expecting a transformation to occur, and we're expecting it to occur over some period of time. And as we make incremental improvements toward that endpoint, we need to measure how well are we doing. And one of the things that I would offer is that the portfolio will shift in terms of mix. And so, as a practical matter, I think it's great that we have natural gas and an expectation that the costs will be low for some period of time. But it is part of a portfolio. It is part of a portfolio that in the future will have a very different profile than the one we have today. And we need to be deliberate about what that endpoint needs to look like and move toward that endpoint, again, with strong understanding of what our policies are yielding in terms of change in that portfolio and at what pace.
Level playing field, I think I have time for one more, and maybe I'll ask you to do it in writing. Go ahead, Mr. Mundy.
Okay, yes, I agree that we do need a level playing field as a bedrock principle. I agree with you that it's a problem that efficiency, renewable energy have temporary breaks, some other sources have permanent ones. I would advocate that everybody should be put on this 5-year schedule, sort of like the Farm Bill. It's not saying get rid of it, but every 5 years we look at it and say, what makes the most sense going forward? But as you have long-term permanent things, I think we get a lot more waste where money is being spent in things where it maybe isn't needed.
Let's do this. My time is up. Mr. Wagner, if you and Mr. Golden would furnish your answer in writing on this point with respect to the level playing field, and I would also ask, just if you would, Mr. Golden, in writing, also give us your views with respect to how the whole home credit being combined with the 25C proposal could advance this idea of the more level playing field. And,
Absolutely, thank you.
My colleagues are all waiting to ask questions, so if we could have those comments. I want you to know I'm going to read them personally.
Great. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. The order here, based on arrival, would be Senator Cardin, and then Senator Thune, and then Senator Carper. So go right ahead. Senator Cardin has been a co-sponsor of this legislation that Senator Snowe and I have developed, and we appreciate his strong support.
Well, Senator Bigman, first of all, thank you for your leadership, not just on this committee, but on the Energy Committee. You have really, I think, provided the direction for our country that a sound energy policy is critically important for our national security. It's important for our environment, and done right will create more jobs in our community. So I thank you for your leadership. You're going to be sorely missed, not just on this committee, but in the United States Senate. And we're going to try to follow in your footsteps, but it's going to be difficult. So thank you very much for everything that you have done.